I always believed that family dinners had a special kind of magic. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, the smell of roasted chicken filling the house. It was a kind of warmth that made life feel steady, predictable, safe. That night was no different, or so I thought. It was my mother's 68th birthday, and everyone had gathered around the long oak table in our dining room. My sister brought her kids, my uncle told his usual bad jokes, and Caroline, my wife, looked as calm and graceful as ever, sitting across from me in her pale blue dress. She smiled at me when our eyes met, and for a moment, I felt grateful. We had been through ups and downs like every couple, but I thought we were solid. I thought I knew her heart as well as my own. I lifted my glass to toast my mom's health, and the family cheered. For a fleeting second, life was perfect. Then my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, but something made me glance down. It was an unknown number. The message preview showed a single line. You should know what she's been doing on her business trips. My stomach tightened. I unlocked the phone and saw a photo. Caroline, unmistakably her, standing in a hotel lobby. In her arms was another man. Their faces were close, smiling, intimate. The air in the room suddenly felt thin. The laughter faded into a distant hum, my pulse pounding in my ears. I looked up at Caroline again. She was talking to my sister, unaware of the storm breaking inside me. I slipped the phone into my pocket, forcing a smile as my mother asked me to carve a cake. My hands trembled slightly, but I masked it by making a joke about the icing being too thick. I could hear Caroline's soft laugh, familiar, comforting, and now unbearably hollow. Every second at that table felt like a lie. After dinner, while everyone chatted over coffee, I excused myself and stepped outside. The night air was cool, crisp, almost cruel in its clarity. I stood by my car, breathing hard, trying to make sense of the image that wouldn't leave my mind. Caroline's laptop was still in the passenger seat, where she'd left it earlier after checking her work emails. My hands moved before I could stop myself. I opened the lid, the screen coming to life, her background picture showing our kids, Lily and Noah, smiling on a beach from last summer. That memory twisted the knife deeper. I shouldn't have looked. I know that now. But something inside me, some desperate need for truth, drove me forward. Her email was open, the inbox filled with unread messages. My heart pounded as I typed a name into the search bar. Frank. The results loaded instantly. Dozens of threads, hundreds of messages. I clicked the first one. The subject line read, "Last night was perfect." My breath caught. I scrolled down, and there it was, Caroline's words, written in the soft tone I once thought was reserved for me. She talked about missing him, about counting the days until their next business trip. My chest burned. My hand shook. Each message was a dagger, slicing away at the life I thought we shared. The photos attached left no room for doubt. Hotel rooms, dinners, selfies that told a story I had never been part of. I sat there, staring at the screen, unable to move. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the realization that every late meeting, every conference call, every "I'll be home tomorrow" had been a lie carefully wrapped in affection. The clock on the dashboard glowed, 8:43 p.m. Inside, I could hear faint laughter through the walls, the clinking of dishes, my family enjoying what should have been a happy evening. I didn't feel anger yet, just a hollow silence growing in my chest. When I finally looked up from the laptop, the night sky had gone darker, clouds drifting across the moon. I could see my reflection in the windshield, a stranger staring back at me, pale, rigid, eyes filled with disbelief. For a long time, I just sat there, breathing in the cold air, feeling everything and nothing at once. Then I closed the laptop and whispered to myself, "Not here. Not tonight." I couldn't let my mother's birthday end in chaos. Not yet. I wiped my face, steadied my voice, and walked back into the house. The sound of laughter hit me again, and it felt like walking into a movie I no longer belonged to. Caroline looked up and smiled, as if nothing had changed. But everything had. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of something I could never undo. Sleep was impossible that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those messages again. Caroline's words to him, the way she signed off each email, with love you more than ever. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling the world I'd built start to crumble piece by piece. The soft breathing beside me only made it worse. She slept peacefully, unaware that I'd seen everything. By morning, I had made a choice. I needed the whole truth. Not half of it. Not assumptions. The truth, laid bare and undeniable. Caroline left early, as she always did before a trip. She kissed my cheek and said she'd be gone for 2 days. Her suitcase rolled across the wooden floor, the sound sharp in the silence. I watched from the window as her car disappeared down the street. When the house was quiet, I sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open in front of me. The coffee went cold as I read through every message, one after another. Frank wasn't just some stranger she'd met recently. He was a colleague, someone she had been training on those out-of-town assignments. Their first emails dated back almost 8 months. The first messages were cautious, playful even. Then they grew more personal, more intimate. Soon they were sharing hotel rooms, vacation photos, even private jokes about me, about my routines, my predictability, the way I never suspected a thing. I clenched my fists so tightly my knuckles turned white. At some point, I found a shared folder filled with photos. There was Caroline, laughing in a hotel lobby. Caroline at dinner with Frank, holding a glass of wine. Caroline asleep, her hair spread across a pillow that wasn't ours. That was when I stood up and nearly threw the laptop across the room. But I stopped myself. No rage could undo what had already happened. I needed to be careful, precise. That afternoon, I called my friend Daniel, who worked in IT security. I told him I needed help retrieving deleted emails from Caroline's account. I didn't give details, and he didn't ask. Within hours, he sent me everything. Months of communication she'd thought she'd erased. It was all there. Every line, every photo, every I miss you. By the time Caroline came home 2 days later, I had organized everything into folders, dates, attachments, call logs, receipts. My heart was a battlefield of pain and focus. I wasn't planning revenge. I just wanted the truth in order. She walked through the door smiling, her perfume filling the air. "Hey, babe," she said, setting her suitcase down. "You look tired. Everything okay?" I nodded and forced a small smile. "Yeah, just a long day." She kissed my cheek, not noticing how I flinched. I wanted to scream, to confront her right there, but instead I swallowed it down. The timing wasn't right. My mother's birthday dinner was still fresh in everyone's memory, and I wasn't ready to detonate a bomb in front of kids. That night, Caroline curled beside me in bed, scrolling through her phone. I turned away, pretending to sleep. The glow of her screen reflected on the wall. I could see the faint smile on her face. She was texting him. I didn't need to see the words to know. I stared at the darkness, my chest tightening until it hurt to breathe. In that silence, I realized something terrifying. I had loved her completely, and she had been living a life that didn't include me at all. Days passed in a blur. I went to work, took the kids to school, laughed when I was supposed to, but inside I was hollow. Every time Caroline picked up her phone or mentioned another meeting, it felt like a needle under my skin. One evening, while she was taking a shower, her phone buzzed on the dresser. The name on the screen made my stomach twist. Frank. I unlocked it easily. She'd never changed the password. The message read, "Miss you already. Same place next month?" I stood there, staring at the glowing screen, the sound of running water behind the bathroom door. It was then I decided what I had to do. I wasn't going to argue in whispers or confront her in secret. I wasn't going to let her twist the truth or play innocent. She had taken something sacred and turned it into a performance. So I would make sure the curtain fell, with everyone watching. That weekend, my family was coming over again for a Sunday dinner. My mother, my siblings, my cousins, the people who had loved and supported us for years. I would tell them the truth, not out of vengeance, but because I couldn't live one more day pretending this house still stood on love. As I sat alone that night, the evidence folder open on my laptop, I looked at Caroline sleeping peacefully beside me and whispered, "You don't even know what's coming." It wasn't anger anymore. It was clarity. Cold, painful clarity. And when Sunday came, the world we'd built together would collapse under the weight of its own lies. Sunday arrived with an eerie calm. the kind of quiet that settles before a storm. The house smelled like roasted chicken and cinnamon candles, the same scent we used every time the family gathered. Caroline moved around the kitchen with her usual grace, humming softly as she arranged the table. To anyone else, she looked like the perfect wife, the perfect hostess. But to me, every sound, every smile, every casual glance was a lie carefully rehearsed. My mother arrived first, carrying her favorite apple pie. She hugged Caroline warmly and told her she looked radiant. I almost laughed at the irony. My sister and her husband followed, bringing gifts for the kids. Soon, the house filled with laughter again. The same warmth I had once cherished, now hollow and painful. I sat at the head of the table, watching everyone eat, talk, and joke. Caroline sat beside me, her hand occasionally brushing my arm, as if to maintain the illusion. I could barely look at her. The folder on my phone was ready. The photos, the emails, the receipts, everything. Halfway through dinner, as the laughter reached its peak, I put my fork down. My heart pounded, steady but strong. I took a deep breath and stood up. Before we cut the cake, I said quietly, "There's something I need to say." The room fell silent. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me. My mother smiled faintly, probably thinking I was about to make a toast. Caroline looked up too, her expression calm but curious. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, "For months now, Caroline has been having an affair." The air vanished. It was as if someone had sucked all the oxygen out of the room. Forks froze halfway to mouths. My mother's hand trembled over her glass. Caroline blinked once, twice, confusion flickering across her face before turning to panic. "Nick," she whispered, her voice shaky. "What are you talking about?" I didn't answer. I unlocked my phone and laid it on the table, the screen glowing bright in the dim light. "I'm talking about this." On the screen were photos, Caroline and Frank in a hotel lobby, Caroline laughing at dinner, Caroline holding his hand. Then came the emails, the ones that began with "I miss you" and ended with "can't wait to see you again." Gasps echoed around the room. My sister covered her mouth. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Caroline reached for my arm, her face pale. "Nick, stop, please. Let's talk privately." "No," I said. My voice was calm, too calm. "We've been living privately long enough." Her breathing quickened. "It's not what you think. He's just—" "Don't." I interrupted, my voice sharp now. "Don't insult everyone's intelligence. You called him my heart. You sent him photos from our anniversary trip." Someone at the table whispered a curse. The children, sensing the tension, had gone quiet. Lily stared at her plate. Noah's little hands gripped his fork tightly. Caroline's eyes darted around the room, searching for sympathy. There was none. The weight of her shame filled every corner of that dining room. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, her voice cracking. "I was lonely, Nick. You were distant, and I shook my head. "No, don't you dare blame me for your choices. I worked, I came home, I loved you. You had everything, and you threw it away for hotel rooms and secrets." My mother began to cry softly. My sister reached over to comfort her, glaring at Caroline. The silence that followed was unbearable, heavy, suffocating, final. Caroline stood suddenly, her chair scraping across the floor. "I can't do this," she muttered, tears spilling down her face. "I can't." She ran out of the room, her footsteps echoing down the hallway. The front door slammed shut a second later. For a long time, no one moved. The only sound was the clock ticking on the wall, steady and cruel. Finally, my uncle cleared his throat and whispered, "Nick, son, I'm so sorry." I nodded, but said nothing. I just stared at the empty chair beside me, the one she'd left behind. The cake sat untouched in the center of the table, candles flickering weakly before burning out one by one. My mother's birthday had become something else entirely, a requiem for a marriage that had died long before anyone noticed. Later that night, after everyone had left, I sat alone in the darkened living room. The silence was heavy but honest. There were no more lies, no more pretending. In that emptiness, I felt something strange, relief. It was small, buried under pain, but it was there, because the truth, no matter how brutal, had finally been set free. And though I knew the days ahead would be hard, at least I no longer had to live in the shadow of a lie. The days that followed felt like moving through fog. Every morning, I woke up expecting to see her beside me, and every morning I was hit with the same crushing silence. The bed felt larger, emptier, colder. The space where Caroline used to sleep had become a reminder of everything we'd lost, everything she destroyed. The story of what happened that night spread fast through the family. My sister called me every day, my mother came by to check on the kids, and friends started showing up with food and awkward smiles. Everyone wanted to say something comforting, but most of them didn't know what to say. I didn't need comfort. I needed clarity. Caroline tried calling. Dozens of times. I didn't answer. When she finally showed up at the door, her eyes were red, her hands trembling. She said she just wanted to talk, to explain. There's nothing to explain, I told her quietly. You made your choices. She looked past me, searching for Lily and Noah, who were sitting on the couch watching TV. Please, she whispered. I just want to see them. I nodded toward the door. Not today. Her lips trembled. Nick, I lost my job. Frank's gone. I don't have anyone left. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the photos, the emails, the lies. That's not my problem anymore, I said, and closed the door. The divorce was messy, painful, but I didn't drag it out. I wanted it over. The judge granted me full custody. Caroline didn't even fight it. She just cried in silence as the papers were read aloud. The look in her eyes wasn't anger. It was defeat. In the weeks that followed, I poured myself into my children. I made breakfast every morning, packed lunches, helped with homework, and learned how to braid Lily's hair, something Caroline used to do with such care. At first, the kids were quiet, confused, still processing everything. But slowly, laughter began returning to the house. Noah started playing soccer again, and Lily rediscovered her love for drawing. We talked about honesty, about pain, about how love doesn't always mean forever. I told them the truth in a way they could understand. I didn't want them to grow up believing in illusions. At night, after they went to bed, I sat by the window, the city lights flickering in the distance. Sometimes I caught myself scrolling through old photos, family vacations, birthdays, Christmas mornings. For a moment, I'd see her smile and almost forget what she'd done. Then the memories would catch up, sharp and unforgiving. One evening, I found a letter in the mailbox. It was from Caroline. The handwriting was familiar, elegant, careful. I hesitated before opening it. Inside, she wrote about regret, about how she had let herself be consumed by loneliness and pride. She said she still loved me, that she missed the sound of the kids laughing in the mornings. The words were sincere, maybe too sincere, but it was too late. Love, once shattered, doesn't rebuild the same way. I didn't reply. Instead, I kept moving forward. I focused on the small victories. Noah's first goal at a game, Lily's art displayed at school, the laughter that started to sound genuine again. Still, the nights were the hardest. When the house went quiet and the echoes of the past came creeping back. There were moments when I'd wake up in the middle of the night, thinking I heard her voice, only to realize it was the wind outside. Therapy helped. I went reluctantly at first. My therapist, a calm woman with kind eyes, told me something that stuck. Healing isn't about forgetting Nick. It's about accepting that the pain is part of your story, but it doesn't have to be the whole story. So I try to live that truth. Caroline moved away eventually. She sent birthday card for the kids, sometimes small gifts. I never stopped her from reaching out to them, but I kept my distance. Some walls aren't meant to be torn down again. By the end of that year, the house felt lighter, the air clearer. There were still traces of her, an old mug in the cabinet, her handwriting on a recipe card, but they no longer hurt the same way. They were just reminders of what had been, not what still was. One night, as I tucked the kids into bed, Lily looked at me and said, "Daddy, are you happy now?" I paused, thinking about the question. Happiness felt like a fragile thing, something that came and went like the tide. But for the first time in a long while, I could answer honestly. "I'm getting there," I said. She smiled, small but sincere, and hugged me tight. After she fell asleep, I sat alone in the quiet living room, watching the moonlight spill across the floor. There was no bitterness left, only a tired kind of peace. Caroline had broken something that could never be fixed, but she had also freed me from the illusion of perfection. I had been forced to face the truth, and in doing so, I'd learned what strength really meant. Love hadn't saved me. Truth had. And though the scars were still there, I knew they were a part of something stronger, a life rebuilt one honest day at a time. A full year has passed since that night, the night when everything I believed about love and family was stripped down to its bare truth. The house feels different now, lighter, calmer. There's laughter again, not the forced kind that hides pain, but the kind that rises naturally from peace. This morning, the sun streamed through the kitchen window as Lily poured cereal and Noah argued about which cartoon to watch before school. Their voices filled the air like music. It's strange how life continues, how it quietly repairs itself while you're still learning to breathe again. After dropping them off at school, I stopped by the park. It's the same park where Caroline and I once took family photos, back when I thought love was unshakable. Now it's where I go to think, to watch the world go on. Today, I sat on our usual bench, coffee in hand, and watched the leaves drift down from the trees. The seasons had turned, and with them, so had I. I still receive letters from Caroline sometimes. They come every few weeks, neatly folded, written in that same careful script. Each one starts with an apology, and each one ends with hope. Hope for forgiveness, for understanding, for a second chance she'll never get. I don't hate her. I did for a while. Hate is easy. It burns bright and fast, but it doesn't last. What's left after hate fades is something quieter, acceptance. She made her choices, and I made mine. We can't undo the past, but we can decide how much of it we carry forward. Lily asked to write her mom a letter last month. I let her. She told me she missed her sometimes, and I told her that was okay. Missing someone doesn't mean forgetting what they did. It just means you're human. Noah, on the other hand, doesn't talk about his mom much. He channels everything into soccer. Every time he scores a goal, he looks up at the stands to make sure I'm watching. And I always am. One evening, after work, I found myself cleaning the attic. I came across a box of old photos. Our wedding, family vacations, birthdays. I sat there for a long time, going through them one by one. The faces smiling back at me belonged to people who no longer existed, versions of us that died long before I admitted it. I didn't cry. I just felt a soft ache, the kind that comes when you realize some memories are better left untouched. I took one photo, a picture of Caroline holding Lily as a baby, and placed it in a drawer. Not because I wanted to remember her, but because Lily deserved to. Then I sealed the box and set it aside, not in anger, but in peace. Life has a way of rebuilding itself in unexpected ways. The kids and I started new traditions. Saturday pancakes, movie nights, road trips with no destination. The house that once echoed with tension now hums with quiet joy. There are still moments when I feel the weight of it all. Sometimes late at night, when the world goes still, I remember the way Caroline used to laugh, or the sound of her voice calling the kids to dinner. But the memories no longer cut. They simply exist. Pieces of a life that once was. This afternoon, I returned to that same park bench. Noah was playing soccer with his friends, and Lily sat beside me, nose buried in a book. The air smelled like rain, and the sky glowed gold with the setting sun. Watching them, I felt something shift inside me. A small but undeniable sense of gratitude. Caroline's betrayal had torn my world apart, but it had also stripped away every illusion. In its place, I built something stronger. Real. Honest. I realized that the truth, as painful as it had been, was the only thing that saved us. It had burned down everything false and left behind a foundation for something pure. Lily closed her book and leaned her head on my shoulder. "Dad," she said softly, "I think Mom really loves us, even if she made mistakes." I nodded. She does. People can love you and still hurt you, sweetheart. What matters is what we do after. She smiled, a quiet, knowing smile, and went back to reading. The sun dipped below the trees, casting long shadows across the grass. Noah's laughter echoed across the field. The world, for once, felt still, whole. And as I watched my children, their faces glowing in the last light of day, I understood something simple but profound. Truth doesn't destroy you, it rebuilds you. Maybe love doesn't always last, but honesty does. And sometimes that's enough. That night, after the kids were asleep, I stood by the window, watching the moon rise above the quiet neighborhood. The pain that once consumed me had softened into something else, something lighter. I wasn't the same man I was a year ago. I was someone stronger, quieter, truer. And as the wind rustled through the trees outside, I whispered to myself, we made it. For the first time in a long time, I meant it. The silence no longer hurt. It felt like peace.